everybody, this is D and Mike, and this is the next campaign diary for Rise of Tiamat. We are in still Chapter 2. Matter of fact, we wrapped up Chapter 2, and we start Chapter 3 actually this Friday, or I guess Episode 3 is what they call that, but we started this Friday. And you remember, the characters just got out of Arathator's lair, so they just escaped, they got a glimpse of the dragon, narrowly made their way out of there against the marrow, and are now heading back towards the ship. So we started that night with a cutscene called The Escape, which was a video that'll be coming out a little bit later that explains all that. And they managed to get to the ship. The captain was ready. The people in the frost skimmer were hearing all this noise, hearing all this commotion, of course, earthquakes and rumbling in the waves of the ocean there. They were pretty certain the characters had come across the old White Death. So the captain got the ship ready. He dropped the sails, had all the oars out to get ready to move the ship. He had a skiff waiting for them at the near the edge of the glacier. All the refugees, if you remember, they took all the villagers and were going to relocate them, so they've become refugees, and they were brought to the lower decks of the vessel. And now for you, I don't know as a DM if you're running this, I think in the book, the Frost Skimmer is kind of seen as a smaller vessel. I went all Master and Commander, made it a huge galleon. I just thought there was more story potential there with something a little bit bigger and larger that had cannons and all kinds of things. But they got on board and they immediately set sail using the oars. They were trying to be as quiet as possible. But it took about 45 minutes, and that goes by like that, right, in D&D game time, for them to, they knew they were going to be attacked. So they were just kind of setting up, what spells am I going to use? What am I going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? That kind of thing. And then they could see, I had music set up for this, they could see Arathator out on the horizon coming towards a boat. And I used this map. Here's the Tabletop Simulator map. It's a mix of 2D and a mix of 3D. And you can see here the isometric ship that I used. I had a 3D model, but it was becoming temperamental, and I thought on game day, that's not what I want when you're fighting a dragon. So I replaced it with the isometric, which was a lot of fun to use. And then, of course, the dragon itself there in the corner, which was animated. Not a white dragon. I found a huge set of animated models on the workshop for Tabletop Simulator, but they just, good 3/4 of them were having issues, and they had crashed the desktop. So you had to kind of pick and choose, like one model would work, one model wouldn't. And unfortunately, the white dragon that they actually had was not working. It was crashing the thing to the desktop every time. So I went with the next best thing, right? And I wanted it because it was animated and it was huge and it would be intimidating. So I at least got that. But we had that whole encounter. It was about 2 hours long. As a DM, I kind of searched online to find hit points and armor class for the ship, the mast, the stern. I don't know. I'm not a nautical guy. Where they steer the ship. All the cannons themselves, the cannonballs, the damage they would do, the actions it would take to load. I think it's like 3 actions to load a cannon. I chopped it down to 2. I didn't want it to take too long, because I knew there's a lot going on. As you can see here on the map too, I have group tokens. Each group token represented 8 crew members, and so they were kind of positioned at their cannons. They also had initiative order as well, and I pre-rolled all this stuff, right? You pre-roll it so you don't waste time at the table. So the crew was pre-rolled, the dragon was pre-rolled, and we just kind of ran from there. And I think the dragon was like 6th in line or something like that. But anyway, the combat started, and I honestly just didn't get a chance to use a lot of Arathator's powers. I used fear tactics, and of course that only affected about half the ship on the deck. And a lot of people, a lot of crew members abandoned their posts. They ran away from the cannons. And it got so bad at one point, the crew members were jumping overboard because they just could not get away from Arathator fast enough. The players did get a few shots off with the cannons and managed to hit the dragon. Other times, they would hold their action, and the dragon just would not come on that side of the ship. But the biggest highlights were 3 things. First of all, Storm and Thimbraeus, they managed, in a nutshell version here, to get on top of the dragon. They managed to connect to the dragon as it would swoop by the ship. Storm managed to grab onto its legs, one of its legs, and slowly start this climb up to the dragon. And Thimbraeus used a heavy crossbow, a bolt, tied a rope to it, tied a rope to himself, fired it, managed to hit the dragon, and after several checks, a very long turn, which is always fun actually, it's not a negative thing, he got pulled off the deck. And so, those airplanes that have the signs in the back, it's kind of that. I had the dragon, long rope, Thimbraeus way back here, just hanging on, and Storm climbing up the side of the dragon. All of this done, All this was done with many, many skill checks and trying to see if it was even possible. And it turned out the dice said, yes, it's possible, which I always leave it up to the dice in those kind of situations. But the dragon had taken some hits, and I was starting to think, okay, it's time to get out of here. It's time to go, because for some reason, like, my breath weapon didn't hit, like, it just didn't work. I was rolling really poorly, which was really anticlimactic. But what really did it in, he took a lot of hits. But as I was trying to get him out of there, Yithriel shot off one of the arrows of dragon slaying and did a whopping amount of damage. I think it was like somewhere between 130, 150 or something. It was just a huge amount of damage. Arathator only had like 100 and some odd points left, and I was hoping I could get him out of there with that remaining HP. Boy, was I wrong. Yithriel took him down hard. And so she hit him with the arrow of dragon slaying, and he tumbled down, smacked against the ocean. And I think Thimbraeus and Storm took about 40, 50 points of bludgeoning damage, hitting the ocean that fast and that hard. And, the ship recovered, the dragon fear went away. They got Storm and Thimbraeus out of the water, all the extra crewmen. They ended up dropping off the villagers at another location or another clan. And now, as a DM, you can do this, just keep this in mind. I actually had the villagers, this clan, said, look, we can unite, and we will fight for you against the dragons, because we can tell something terrible is happening. So she gave the paladin a sending stone, or a communication stone. Look, my terms are all wrong. You know what I'm talking about. A sending stone so they could talk to each other, and said, when the time is right, let us know. So they formed an alliance with the villagers and who knows how many other clans, and then they went back and left for Waterdeep. And so we had this huge section, 2-hour section fighting against the Arathator, which felt like it went by in 5 minutes. And then we had the last section, about 2.5, 3 hours of role play. And they came back into Waterdeep, and everybody kind of spread out and went their own way. Maketh was brought to Onathar to keep her kind of some sanctuary in their clan and faction so she wasn't attacked. Yithriel went to search for how to create some potions and how to increase her health potion, what's the word I'm looking for, potency, but also how to deal with exhaustion levels. Because when my characters or a player gets hit with, or even an enemy, gets hit with a critical hit, we max out the damage, and a creature or the player is also hit with a level of exhaustion. And that's every single time you're given a critical hit, just to make things a little more impactful. So she was trying to find a way to, overcome that. So she's going around to apothecaries and trying to figure out how we could do this. So that's kind of a role-playing moment for her. And Storm went to the inns and chilled out, meats and lots of alcohol, and chilled in the inns and had baths, steam baths, and all that kind of stuff. He was just relaxing after everything that had happened. Thimbraeus went down and got a lot of gems and gold and got that all kind of valued and got some money from that and spent his night gambling. And I think it was Lucius who ended up meeting with the Lady in Red, Zaylin Maw, who's in charge of Thimbraeus' Thieves Guild. And only one other person in the group has actually met with Zaylin, and that was Storm in Horde of the Dragon Queen. So it's been a while since anybody's had an audience with her. And basically what happened in there was Thimbraeus. Zaylin cut a deal with Paladin. She had info about where his father might be. She was still working on it, but she had some info. And she would exchange that info with the last remaining arrow of dragon slaying that they had, because she wanted to take it, study it, and maybe see if they could learn how to replicate this for the war. In my campaign, you need special weapons to really kind of bring down a dragon. As we saw in the fight with Arathator, it really was that black arrow that took him down the hardest, right? So there's the lost art of dragon slaying and dragon artifacts and dragon weaponry, like the dragon lances. It's been long lost. No one knows how to do this stuff anymore. So that's a key element of what they're trying to figure out. So Zaylin Maw wants this arrow and wants this information to see if they could crack the code, see if they can figure out how to do it. So a deal was being cut with Lucius, and that's kind of where we ended up, I think, that night. We're in Waterdeep now in this role-playing moment. And so now we're getting ready to have another council meeting. Oh, you know what? I totally forgot. Here's one fun little thing. I had Pax. There was an assassination attempt on Pax in her temple in Kellamvor. It was a funny thing because I thought for sure I'd be able to hit Pax hard with this because she wouldn't see it coming. Here, I'll put a little Tabletop Simulator map up. You can see this is the room I made for her in Tabletop Simulator. Very simple 2D image on the map itself. But I had this assistant that brought her down to her chambers and whatnot, and she was purified. She went through this kind of meditation ritual or a bathing ritual after being out to sea a month and just kind of cleansing her of the undead and whatnot. So she went down into her room and she was meditating. And I was hoping two things, that she would rest or meditate. That's what I was hoping for, so I could do the assassination. Well, she meditated. Great, that gives me an opportunity. But here's what happened. When she meditated, she used one of her abilities. I can't remember now. She has an ability where she could ask a deity a particular question. I wasn't anticipating that. And she wanted to know if any crucial events that were about to happen. Like, just give me some stuff. What is happening now? I can't remember exactly what the question was. But the question pretty much sabotaged my assassination attempt. And I had to do it. The assistant was behind her pulling out this long silver knife. And in Pax's dreams or her meditation, the deities were whispering to her. She could see images of a knife being drawn and this person coming up closer and closer to her. And so she snapped out of it and she started looking around. And then, of course, there was no surprise attack. She knew these things were coming. There was the assistant behind her with the acolyte with a knife. And Pax pretty much wiped the floor with her. And it's fine. It could have gone two different ways, but I really was not expecting her to take some time to meditate and ask such a specific question that as a DM, I had no choice but to give her a direct answer, a direct response to that, where she pretty much put it together pretty darn quickly. And it was a great little moment. It lasted maybe 10, 15 minutes. But what was cool about it was Pax gave me this information. She gave me this information back in August, where she was doing downtime days, and one of the things that popped up in her roles was some acolyte had penetrated the temple and was actually working for the cult. It's just like this throwaway information that I was given back in probably July or August. And it suddenly came to fruition. Like, I remembered it and I was like, you know what, let's do that. They're back in Waterdeep. The cult's moving forward. Let's try this. And so I did it. And it failed miserably. But anyway, it was a good little moment. So this is where we are now, guys. We're in Waterdeep. Everybody's kind of in their positions, kind of wandering around the town. And the second council meeting is about to happen. And then we're going to move into episode 3, which I don't want to give any of that away right now, but we'll go into episode 3. So that's it. Pretty cut and dry. We're looking forward to the next encounter. Everybody's kind of in their role-playing moments, but the second council will convene. More information will be given out, and then we're going to take the next steps into the next chapters. And hey, just see where this goes. All right, guys, that's all I got for you. I'll see you in the next one.